Bland Australia was welcomed to the group, who were thereafter known as the League of Extraordinary Communities. Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond. But for once, I want to talk to you about something the two countries have in common: sister cities. What's a sister city, you might ask? Is it where one town is named after another? Not necessarily. While many cities like Worcester, Massachusetts and Worcester, England are indeed sister cities, the same is not true of, say, Lancaster, PA and Lancaster, England. Sister cities are ones that share an agreement ensuring cultural and commercial ties to each other. For instance, my current city of Chicago is twinned with Birmingham, England, while Birmingham, Alabama is twinned with Liverpool. It's weird. And yes, Uncle Toby, I was just getting to that. City pairings of this kind are not exclusive to the UK and America. They span the globe. That said, there are hundreds of American places with UK sister cities. I should know. I mapped them. So, in the interest of time, let's focus on 7 of the more surprising. To do that, I'll need to overlook sister cities that share the same name because, well, what's surprising about that? Sadly, this rules out Massachusetts. Instead, I'll be looking at unexpected or unusual pairings, starting with these. American toponymy never ceases to amaze me. Nevada County has a place called Nevada City, which also has a road called Nevada Street. The common denominator? They're all in California. And in the mid-1800s, so were a great number of prospectors. This included a group of Cornish miners from the English town of Penzance. Due to a decline in tin and copper mining in their home county, they headed to Nevada City to capitalize on a transformative era in American history, the California Gold Rush. And the fact that they sailed here on ships in search of actual gold and didn't call themselves the Pirates of Penzance is truly unforgivable. I don't care if the opera wasn't out yet. Anyone visiting the area today might notice the following 2 things. Firstly, that California looks like a giant sock and Nevada County a miniature foot. That might just be me. And secondly, that Nevada City and nearby Grass Valley remain proud of their Cornish heritage. The tradition of singing Cornish carols continues to this day. In fact, members of the Cornish Carol Choir are said to be descendants of the original Cornish gold miners. Sarasota, Florida, known for more than just zoos, botanical gardens and macho man Randy Savage, in 1885, 65 Scottish colonists left Scotland for Sarasota in search of what they were told was a sunny paradise. The problem was, their first winter there was unusually cold, forcing many to return home to the tropics of Aberdeen. But some of them stayed, including land developer Colonel John Hamilton Gillespie. Over the next 15 years, he would build property as well as a 9-hole golf course, the first in Florida. But introducing an entire sport to Sarasota wasn't enough. In 1902, he became the town's mayor. Fast forward to 2001, and these Scottish connections were further cemented when Sarasota was officially sistered with the Scottish town of Dunfermline. It's not entirely clear why Dunfermline was chosen, since Gillespie was from Edinburgh, but I do know this. Sarasota's Mertz Theatre literally came from Dunfermline. In the late 80s, it was shipped to America from Scotland, where it had previously been the Dunfermline Opera House. Imagine if they ever staged Macbeth, then they'd be called Weird Sister Cities. That was an obscure Shakespeare joke. Okay, so this one is only surprising if you don't know each city's backstory. In fact, Pittsburgh and Sheffield have a lot in common. Both were incorporated as cities in the 19th century, both have a population greater than Barbados but smaller than Luxembourg, and both are nicknamed the Steel City. This doesn't mean they specialise in burglary, though we definitely can't rule that out. It means that both are famous for their steel industries. Indeed, steel mills were once the dominant force of employment in both cities. However, in the 70s and 80s, both endured significant blue-collar layoffs. In Pittsburgh, this was down to several factors, including years of poor strategic planning, hostile management, the early 80s recession, and local depletion of coke and iron ore. In Sheffield, human steel workers largely gave way to automation. That said, it hasn't stopped either city from fielding sports teams known as the Steelers. Imagine the headlines if either of them cheated their way to victory. Houston, the largest city in Texas and the place where astronauts call if they need urgent advice. At first glance, there's little to suggest a common bond between it and northeast Scotland. But as with Nevada City and Pittsburgh, the commonalities here come in the form of a natural resource: oil. Houston, like much of Texas, is home to vast quantities of it, evidenced by the fact that the city boasts 15 Fortune 500 companies within the energy and oil industries. 5,000 miles away off the east coast of Scotland sit several offshore oil fields. Because of this, the town of Aberdeen has been known as the offshore oil capital of Europe since the 70s. Unsurprisingly, it was in that very decade that Houston struck up a sister ship with Aberdeen, or the Grampian region, to sort of say, hey, look at us, we're the oil sisters. Sorry, that sounded way better in my head. Funnily enough, perhaps as a sign of their friendship, there are several streets in Houston containing the name Aberdeen. Then again, it is possible that these were also named after Aberdeen, Texas, which was named after the Earl of Aberdeen. It's all confusing, but while we're on the subject of places named after prominent people, let's bring on our next entry. The word Washington can be found all across the US map. It's the name of a state, 2 mountains, 30 cities, 31 counties, 5,000 streets, and the US capital. George Washington is himself a natural resource. But what if I told you that DC's global sister cities included 13 world capitals and, drumroll, the English city of Sunderland? The reason for this unlikely friendship lies with the president himself. The ancestors of George Washington once lived in the nearby English town of Washington. In fact, William Washington, then known as de Wessington, assumed tenancy of Washington Old Hall in the early 17th century when future President George was just minus 130. Little then did the people of Sunderland know that one of their families would go down in US history, mostly because US history was still in the future. Canterbury, England, known worldwide for its archbishops, old buildings and books that were written before English made any sense, the city is steeped in history going back 2,000 years to when people were still made out of stone and when men had really tiny wardrobes. Given its extraordinary history, it's perhaps all the more remarkable that Canterbury's American sister is called Normal. Indeed, Normal, Illinois, much like its twin city of Bloomington, has a large number of sister cities, including the actual Nazareth where Jesus lived. Of course, that doesn't mean that Normal is the Luke Hemsworth of siblings. After all, the town is also twinned with Milton Keynes. It just means that it likes to keep good company. Along with the town of Vladimir, Russia, Canterbury and Normal Bloomington form what is known as the Three Cities Association. In 2010, the Best Lane Garden in Canterbury was renamed the Three Cities Garden, which now houses plants native to England, Russia and America. So a bit awkward if one of the plants brings up the Cuban Missile Crisis. On the other hand, Normal, Illinois sounds like the least likely setting for a thrilling Cold War spy drama, except of course for these. It's a little-known fact that Boring, Oregon was named not for its perceived lack of interesting features, but in honor of the Union soldier William Harrison Boring. So I say this, if you don't have the foresight to realize that such a name is going to subject your town to decades of ridicule, you might as well embrace it. And that's exactly what it did. In 2012, the community of Boring, Oregon became paired with Dull in Scotland. Now, it should be noted that Sister City International, which is the ruling body that oversees these things, doesn't officially recognize the pairing of Dull and Boring. So, hilariously, this prompted the two to form their own breakaway union. And in 2013, it got a new member. Bland Australia was welcomed to the group, who were thereafter known as the League of Extraordinary Communities. And in light of all of this, I am seriously considering creating a petition to get Ordinary Virginia added to the league. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below if you think Ordinary Virginia should be added and whether you live in a town or city that is sistered with one in the United Kingdom. I'm Lawrence Brown and you can follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. And a huge thank you to all of my patrons, many of whom joined me here in the last week. If you would like to become a patron of Lost in the Pond and support the work that I do, you can do so at patreon.com/lostinthepond. Until next time, goodbye.